At Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. All right, welcome everybody. Today we're talking about the intersection of climate technology and resilient construction. We'll explore how these groundbreaking technologies are reshaping the future of construction. Welcome to Dave Cooper Live, where we bring you the people, the products, and the processes helping us all build it better. And today's episode is going to be super cool as we welcome Josh Dorfman, host of the acclaimed Super Cool podcast. Yeah, you saw what I did right there. You may remember Josh from his previous visit with us as the founder of Planted, the company focused on developing and producing sustainable building materials from fast-growing grass fibers as a substitute for traditional wood-based materials. He is an entrepreneur, a sustainability advocate, and a leading voice in climate tech innovation. But first, we can't do any or all of this without our supporting members. So how about a big shout out to a cutting edge, small duct, energy efficient central HVAC solution for homes and businesses where space is at a premium. Whether you're looking to optimize comfort or energy efficiency, Cobalt Creed has the expertise to make it happen. Visit them at cobaltcreed.com for more information. And thank you for powering the Dave Cooper Live show. Now, a quick word from these other sponsors, and we're going to get right into it with Josh Dorfman. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Ready to scale up your offsite construction business? Introducing 4A Constructs, your solution to finding skilled labor for offsite manufacturing. Say goodbye to the headache of recruiting a skilled workforce with hand-selected certified tradesmen that are expertly trained and managed for offsite manufacturing, set crews, and finished crews, ensuring maximum productivity and safety. Unlock the future of skilled workforce development for all of your offsite construction needs. Visit them at 4aconstructs.com. All right. Again, a big thank you to all of our supporting members, to include all of the members you see going across the ticker there. If you'd like to help us keep this show going and showing you all the innovation happening from around the world, we always appreciate your support, and we'll give back a little bit as well by giving you some press and putting you out there. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get back into the show with Mr. Josh Dorfman. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Dave. Great to see you again.
It's great to see you again as well. You, my friend, are doing so much that I can't even keep up. So you started Planted. We had that show on a couple years ago. It's rocking and rolling, right? You got some big orders coming in. Now you got some super cool podcasts happening and media company, and you're living not far from where my family lives. But we're going to cover all of this before too long. But first, Josh, we want to know everything about you. We want to know where you're from, what you're doing, what you're up to. Keep it short. We've had you on the show before. We don't want to drag this out, but come on, man. Give us a quick background, a quick elevator pitch, and then let's get into where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for having me on again. The quick story is I've been a sustainability focused entrepreneur for a little over 20 years now. And, what drives me is the ability to move the world in a direction where so many of us want to see it going in terms of solving climate change, lowering our environmental impact, bringing our civilization, frankly, into balance with nature, but doing it in a way that improves life, where life gets better, where we can actually look at the future with hope, and not just hope that we solve really big challenges, but feel inspired that we're also building a better world for ourselves, for generations that come next. That's what I focus on. And so, yeah, so you mentioned some of the companies I've been involved with. I founded a couple of modern design, sustainable furniture companies. I did a stint at Amazon where I built a business called Vine.com. It was like an online Whole Foods, a specialty business unit. I've had a previous TV show, media company called The Lazy Environmentalist, helping people go green without having to work very hard. And of course, Planted, we're getting into carbon negative building materials and manufacturing, and now Super Cool. So that's the quick summation, man. It's been quite a journey and a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, it has been quite a journey. I mean, you are a serial entrepreneur, with the environment as your main focus, not just for yourself, but for your own children and everybody else out there. Planted had some big news, right, with one of the largest home builders. Why don't you give us a quick update on where you guys are with Planted today and how you see the future looking? And then let's get into some of the other cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the fall, we did announce a very large orders from D.R. Horton, the largest home builder in the country, in order for $200 million worth of panels. So we make a building material out of fast-growing grass instead of trees. It's an OSB or plywood replacement for walls and roofs. We'll get into floors for sheathing. We've got some other products coming down the pipeline too. So we started this business in 2021. And it's been really like building a rocket ship. And then my co-founders come from SpaceX. So they actually were building rocket ships. And in a very short amount of time, we've gotten to the place where we've proven out a lot. We've proven out the technology. We've proven out the feedstock we use, this particular grass we use, its strength. It's really awesome, building characteristic properties. And yeah, now we're really primed for some exciting growth.
Yeah, definitely. You guys are definitely growing. It's great. And congratulations that some of the biggest home builders out there are starting to see the value in what you've created, the product. It says a lot about you guys and a company. So how about some lessons learned? You've been in it for a few years now in the product space. What are some lessons learned when you're trying to bring alternative materials to market? Because there's a lot of people trying to bring new things to market, and it's not an easy journey.
I think fundamentally you have to go into it with the notion that you're going to create something that's a drop-in replacement for what builders use today. In other words, so we have our mission, our vision. We want to save the planet. We want to pull carbon from the atmosphere. We want to lock it away in these building materials. And we go through all this huge operational process to make that happen. But at the end of the day, a builder is using OSB, a builder is using plywood, and they're like, I know how it works. I understand, the characteristics. I know how to drill into it. If you want me to substitute for your product, it needs to work exactly the same, right? I don't want to have to go into any extra effort, even if your product is better, even if it's higher performance, right? Like we know that to really drive change and hit the biggest markets, you just have to make it so easy for home builders to say yes. And so that's really been our North Star from a product development point of view. Now, can we make the product better? Well, that makes it easier for a builder to say yes. But, can we hit the same price point or come close to it, very quickly? Obviously, that makes it easier. But fundamentally, builders who want to get on board with something new, they just need it to be really easy. No extra steps. You shouldn't even know that, you're switching to something else like that. That's how we think about it.
So when we do talk about coming to, market with the new product and simplifying the process so it's an easy no-brainer switch, pricing is a thing, right? It's always hard to come out of the gate cost competitive when you have something new because the capital structure it's in place to make all the new products that you're doing is there. But as you start ramping up and you're able to produce more, are you starting to see the costs come down and really be competitive?
Well, I would say, that's always the objective. And so, we're 3.5 years into this business. I think when what differentiates Planted, at least so far, is that we, and I suppose other companies too, but we're so buttoned up on the operational side. I think it's having co-founders who come from SpaceX who, were just ingrained and drilled over and over, take out cost. Right. And so it's such a part of our roadmap, again, for the same reason, because we know that if we're going to work with the largest builders, if we're going to get to scale, that there's just a certain expectation of how the industry works, and you have to work with that expectation to get there. So we feel very positive about where we are on that journey.
So our worlds are overlapping now, right? Because you have Planted, not there. I'm not overlapping with you there. Now you have Super Cool in the podcast and an amazing newsletter. So if you're not subscribed to it, you guys should go out there and subscribe to Josh's newsletter, especially if you want to really be kept up to date on climate solutions. If you're looking at your building practice and you want new ideas, well, what better than the guy that's inventing new ideas and talking about other people doing new ideas? So that's all the plug I'm giving you, though, Josh. We got to get into products here. We had AeroSeal on recently. I believe you have them coming on the show as well. Why don't we talk about a couple of the newer products that you're seeing out there, such as an AeroSeal, Aerobarrier, right? And where do you see this heading?
Yeah, I thought that was really fascinating. We did get a chance to speak with Amit Gupta, the CEO of AeroSeal, right? So there's where I see this heading is I really think that energy is about to become productized in the home, meaning that homeowners are going to increasingly understand, okay, I'm spending what, $200, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, maybe more on energy per year. And it's like invisible, right? Like you get a bill, you can't see anything. You don't know what you're spending on. All of that is about to change. And there's a lot of companies that are saying, hey, gosh, if all that money is being spent, we have all this, digital technology, we've got batteries coming into homes. Like there's going to be more visibility and homeowners are going to start to say, what can I do about this? Yeah. And so, but fundamentally take AeroSeal is like, well, hold on, time out. Before you go do any of that, like what you really need to understand is that your home heating and cooling, your HVAC, right, is probably about, half your energy bill. And 50% of that may be just going out the window or, disappearing because of leaks. And that's right. That's a shocking thing. And so, what AeroSeal is doing, I think, is really amazing. And I think what they're figuring out too, kind of to your previous question, Dave, are like, what does it take to actually get to scale? They're figuring out what is that value prop where we can say, yeah, there's some upfront cost to this, right? But like you're going to see savings and you're going to see, that fully pay itself back in a time frame, that's probably actually, faster than even putting solar on your roof, right? Like it's
sure.
So yeah. I think that's really exciting.
We already know that homeowners, and businesses are feeling the pressure from all of the inflation and utilities going through the roof, and AeroSeal is just one of those companies that can actually plug the holes, lightly to say, right? Like literally can plug the holes in your house or in your HVAC systems, in a pretty spectacular way, which is a huge energy reduction, right there.
Yeah, but what's amazing about it, and what I couldn't believe when we dug into the story was that the technology, to have these little particle clouds, right, that go in, identify the leaks, right, and then clog them up, right, adhere to a leak or a hole and clog it up. That's invented 30 years ago, right? So it's like this idea gets invented 30 years ago. The guy who started it couldn't make a go of the business. Carrier acquires it, goes to this large corporation. No traction there. It's kind of dying a slow corporate death. And then Amit is, looks at it as like, oh my gosh, like what he had said to us was that he had family in the UK, and the UK is like the leakiest, draftiest modern nation in the world, right? He's like, it's like people are saying like, am I going to heat or am I going to eat, right? Because like it's so expensive and so we just like, this is going to change the world. And now it took an entrepreneur, right, to dedicate his life to this thing over a decade ago, and he gets to this point 30 years later where the solution, it's like timing is so important, right? So now I think there really is this recognition. It's not just climate, but as you said, energy costs are going up for everybody. And it's like the moment has arrived for AeroSeal, I think, to build just, a massive, massive business as we just have more awareness. And I think too, for homeowners, because we're living in this higher inflation, higher cost environment, they're looking at their bills differently too. And they're saying, well, geez, why am I spending all this money on energy every month? Right. This used to just be like, whatever, it gets automatically deducted or write a check. And now it's like, no, this is pain. I want to do something about this. And so I think that's a real opportunity for companies like AeroSeal.
With everything happening in the Carolinas where, you were living, right, with the storms that came through, we got the fires in California. There's a lot of talk about products that are resilient, right? There's a lot of rebuilding that has to happen on top of a shortage of homes that we've already had across this country and around the world. So where do you see the construction heading now moving forward when it comes to resiliency, when it comes to building better net zero, level homes, or at least net zero ready homes? Are we going to see the bigger builders make this change and truly try and push for that?
Well, I think obviously we both know that's a very layered question.
Yeah.
Right? There's a legal environment, there's a policy environment, right? There's questions of, federal policy on if you're a first-time home buyer and you want a federally backed loan, does that, do you need to be in a net zero ready home? And I know that's so and those are being questioned right now, right? But if you set that aside and you just look like what is happening, we got very excited. We connected in with Marshall Gobuddy, who I imagine as well, from Pearl Homes, right? And did Hunters Point, did this net, and so it's proven out down in Florida, literally right on the Gulf Coast, that you can build net zero homes, solar on the roof, really tight thermal envelope, batteries from Sonnen to kind of control all of that. Where no one in that development, none of those homeowners in these single family homes ever pay an energy bill. And so, so that's one.
Yeah.
Two, he's built the homes so well that they've survived the hurricanes that have come through there. So you talk about resilience, which is tied in, right, to this notion of like, how do we build a super tight envelope? How do we build the right materials? How do we make sure these homes are going to withstand, storms that have devastated the surrounding community? But then three, in a market, and we're seeing this obviously in California, we're going to see it elsewhere, in a market where insurance companies have fled or homeowners have a very difficult time getting insurance. None of the homeowners in Hunters Point have that problem, right? Because these homes have proven out. And so, as extreme weather becomes, increasingly common, as these storms become, more and more hazardous, you can see these beacons of like, hey, we did it this way. Right. And this is all the value to homeowners if you do it this way. Now, again, I think it depends on the market, depends on the cost structure. Can builders, can production builders get into it? But the roadmap is increasingly starting to be understood that this can be done, and that homeowners, there are markets that actually that want this, right? That will pay for this.
There is, and there's developers now looking at it this way as well. And I'm going to ask Jen to put her on the spot, put it in the comments there, because I can't remember the name of the community. We were touring in Texas a couple of years ago, and they actually did the infrastructure for several homes, thousands of homes in the community, but they did all the infrastructure for geothermal and solar. So it wasn't just every other home. Every part of the community was already set up to start the home as a net zero ready house. And it was already planned out with the, 5 or 6 contractors that were building within this community. And I think it can really start from the ground of the earth and the earth moving in the planning, which makes it a lot more cost effective and more efficient moving forward.
Yeah. You're talking about something that is now near and dear to our super cool heart, for sure.
Yeah.
what that triggers for me, we had a conversation a few months ago with Kathy Hanoun, who founded Dandelion Energy.
Yep.
And so geothermal has the most efficient ground source heat pump now, the Dandelion Geo. I think that's available on the market. But what she said to me that just really struck this chord, kind of like what you're talking about in Texas. She said that today, now in many states, given the state incentives, federal incentives, and just how much more efficient geothermal has become, right? Making the tubes more precise, like whatever you got to do. That for new single family and multifamily developments, that geothermal is actually the cheapest form of HVAC, of heating and cooling, ventilation that you can install, period. Right. And like, if you package that whole financial stack together for new, right? New single family, that is shocking how fast that industry has progressed. And so that's why I think, with a lot of these technologies, what we think is super cool is that you're going to get to a low carbon, potentially zero carbon solution that is going to, and if that's the cheapest energy source that you can get, it is good business practice. Never mind your values about the environment. It is good business practice to implement that solution. And that's what we think is so exciting.
Well, I mean, it's just not the geothermal though, right? You still got to build the house tight, and build it right, as they say, for everything to work. But that's interesting. I've not heard that geothermal is now the most efficient, cost-effective way to heat and cool your home in new construction. That's spectacular.
Yeah, it was fascinating. I mean, there's she came out of so Dandelion, I think, has the biggest market footprint. I think they're the leader now. They've expanded nationally out of the Northeast after they got their learning. And when you kind of drill into that story, so to speak, with her, you understand that it's 1,000 innovations, right, that are taking out costs from the way geothermal's been done. And so, Dandelion goes and she went to Sweden because I think 20% of the homes that are single family in Stockholm and around the country are geothermal. And so, but in a city, you say, okay, or you got a small yard, no one wants their yard torn up, right? No one wants their grass, like no one, right? No one wants the disruption. That's an impediment. In Sweden, they say, well, it's, they've almost become, it's not quite laparoscopic in their, the way they drill down, but much more precise, right? So you can go in and that also takes out cost. And so I think as entrepreneurs, go move into these industries, you are seeing that disruption, and you are seeing some of these, therefore cost benefits, right, start to, take place.
Have you seen climatic ceilings yet? It's like geothermal in your ceilings. It's a big thing in Europe. They put more of it in the ceilings than they do the floor, which I found very interesting. And the houses, I mean, it's just the temperature is so stable that it was almost surreal. And we were at a factory called MCP where they're making bath pods and full MEP wall kits, right? For retrofit, new construction, all the plumbing's there. It's a plug and play system for developers and builders to use. But their manufacturing facility used, a climatic ceiling solution, but they also used a geothermal and a pellet solution. Not only were they heating their manufacturing facility, they were able to also share the energy with the surrounding buildings and the surrounding houses. And then everybody kind of just all pitched into a kitty, so to speak, for the utility bill, however they figured it out. So it's similar to what you're kind of talking about, right? Especially in an urban environment, maybe it's not a system for each house. Maybe there's a shared system that can be put in place.
Oh, I love that. Wait, what's that called?
Yeah. Oh, climate. Well, they were using, it's a climatic ceiling.
Climatic.
It's kind of like it's hydronic, heat in the ceiling, heating and cooling in the ceiling. But the system that they were using, was part of that. But they were also heating and cooling the buildings around them as well. And I'm talking across big parking lots and stuff. It wasn't close by.
That's really interesting. I was just reading yesterday about what E.ON, who's one of the largest utilities in Europe, is doing. I think with a similar concept, right? They're in Malmo, I believe, they have a community where what was interesting, where it is that concept of like, well, and I think their concept also is like, we're actually going to use at least in Europe, I'm guessing it's probably the same here, this product manager for Eon was saying 50% of the energy is just for heat is just waste, just doesn't get used.
Right.
So right. How do we grab that energy? And they were talking about in London, where there's a new development going in, where working with Eon and kind of the way they're building their new heating system, like you don't have to put all the infrastructure in at once. You can actually modularly provide heating and grab waste heating. And
yeah,
we're like, okay, we still got to understand this thing. But I found that, like, instead of saying, oh, geez, we need power, we need 200 megawatts of power here. We need a power plant to go build this development, make sure it's like, no, we can actually do it. Scale up the power as we scale up the real estate development.
right.
So interesting.
Well, we're seeing a lot of that now, right? The MEP companies, whether it is for infrastructure or for the buildings themselves, are all going, taking this, not all, but there's a lot of them that are really taking a modular approach to the entire process, with the idea that, hey, when things change, you just unclamp here, switch here, add in here, and you're off and running, right? So I think there's a lot of value to that, especially when it comes to, the future and being able to change with the times versus how our structures are right now, where it's just next to impossible to do something like that. Let's talk about super cool. First of all, were you drinking beers, writing on a napkin when you came up with the name? Like, how does this actually come about, Josh?
Yes, I had about 1,000 really terrible names as I was trying to think about what would be something that might convey something about, solving climate change and taking out carbon, keeping temperatures down. The idea for Super Cool came about. There's a thought that I've had, as much as I'm fascinated by innovation. What I started thinking over the spring was that we're really in such an interesting, I think, new era from a climate solutions perspective. I think when you look at federal funding and the Inflation Reduction Act and the hundreds of billions of dollars that are now available to seed the private market in terms of climate solutions, when you look at the fact that since for a decade you've had all of these technologies, kind of like what we're talking about, that have got into commercial scale, right? So if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, there'd be no Super Cool because there would be not that much to actually implement. But we're seeing technologies really start to scale, climate technology. And then we're seeing 13,000 cities around the world that are united. And I believe it's the Climate and Mayors, I'm going to blank on CCOM. There's an alliance around energy and climate, and I'm just blanking on the name, right? But you have 600 cities in the US participating that all have climate action plans that are turning their cities into living laboratories for action. You see it, in Lincoln, Nebraska, where they came up with some really interesting grants to low income housing to make it in everyone's best interest, the owners of those buildings, to actually upgrade the low income apartment units, better insulation, and everybody wins, right? And so and the city wins too. And so, we start seeing like, okay, well, they're doing this in Lincoln, Nebraska. In Ann Arbor, they're pushing all the way to green hydrogen. And you start to say, my gosh, like we're in this moment where there's lots of money flowing. You've got technologies that are now commercial ready, and you've got, these living laboratories, not just huge cities, New York City, Chicago, LA, but really everywhere where people are saying it's in the self-interest to enhance quality of life at the same time as you're taking out carbon. And so that's really, when we started seeing that, we thought, geez, there's all of these stories are underway. All of this progress is underway, but it's underrepresented in the media, where when you think about climate change, or, people are like, I don't want any doom and gloom. I don't, they they turn away. And we're trying to say, well, that is real, right? There is this huge challenge. We're not, but there is all this hope and progress and solutions. And if you're aligned with the solutions, it's a little bit easier to deal with the despair. And so, But really what we're trying to do is give business leaders, future forward business leaders, policy leaders, playbooks, case studies, put knowledge in their hands and say, hey, this company over here in New York City, they used whatever technology for energy efficiency. It's de-risked. You builder, developer, you can do it now too. Here's the case study. And so that's the kind of knowledge sharing that we're trying to do to drive impact and really put the solutions in the hands of people who can then go, enact it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what we're doing, right? We're putting the information out there for people to see and find and kind of curate, what is new, what is happening. What about carbon credits? I'm going to put something on the screen here. I was just in England for this product launch called Home IX, right? Home Addicts is what they call it. And what they've done, and I think you might find this very interesting even for your own show, is they have built a complete design dashboard to where all the products are curated. All the products have what they call a passport that's trackable. And I guess they're going to be working with whatever financial institutions to now issue carbon credits. So as somebody goes in to do the, build their home or whatever the case is going to be, they can pick products that are more sustainable, more resilient, and they also are tied to what that carbon credit is. So as you're building your house out, and I'm not going to go through their full dashboard here, you can actually watch the price of your mortgage come down because you're picking products that have already been curated from around the world to reach whatever sustainable goal they're doing. And this was launching in the UK when I was over there.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. Carbon credits, those are, the market has had a really hard time kind of stabilizing, getting to a place where it's one readily understood and trusted.
Yeah.
I think the trust thing has been, and there has been an issue. There's been some blow ups and things that are not helpful to the industry. Eventually, it's probably going to come. I will say this with Planted, when we built, our financial model, we felt that carbon credits, at least initially, would be, a bonus to the bottom line, because there was so much uncertainty that the business has to stand on its own. If we can get credits, well, isn't that going to be great? And hopefully becomes material to the business. But we felt that we needed to stand alone. We've seen innovative credits. We're actually one of the companies that I've really been quite enthusiastic about is a company called D-Light, which is like D.Light. And this company started about 20 years ago. They're actually bringing solar and renewable energy to the developing world, right? So like there are 30 million homes now in Africa that have solar powered lights, different products from this company, D-Light. There's carbon credits tied to that type of thing as well. What really struck me is that, when I heard that, what we don't realize here in the States is, whether you're in India or Africa or elsewhere, much of the world is just really struggles with just, getting access to energy, reliable or any energy at all. And now what was cool about this company D-Light is, they have to make their homes affordable. They have to figure out the financing. So it's like monthly pay as you go. And now it's like smart homes. So everything's connected. So you may not have, a lot of resources around, but like they're enabling people to basically, just like here in America, to turn on and off their lights, their fans, whatever, right? And leapfrogging a lot of fossil fuel infrastructure. And so carbon credits playing a role in that type of, development, I think is also something very exciting to look into.
It's funny. I was just looking here. You mentioned, smart home technology. Well, I've had my run of smart home technology in a house that we recently moved into, and I'm trying to figure it out. It's confusing, all the different pieces and parts and how they all operate. But I do think technology is going to play a big role in where we're going and how we're going to not only build, but the products that we're going to use to build, right? It's especially the AI. It's simplifying a lot of things, making it more complex. Before we get into any deeper conversation with what you're doing at Super Cool, what is your thoughts to builders or developers out there that know they need to start looking at this stuff? How do they understand it? Like, where do they start? Because it's overwhelming. I mean, it's overwhelming for me, and I'm in the industry.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you're right. I think there's so much coming to market. It's hard to know what is hype, what is real. I think if you're a builder, I'm not sure there's a way through it without doing some diligence on it. But we've looked at companies. I think we're going to have them on the show soon. We'll get a chance to talk in depth, like Brainbox AI. That's right. Just got acquired by Train. They are in 4,000 buildings. Because this question always comes up. AI. Okay, is that good for saving the planet? Is that bad for saving the planet? These data centers take so much energy. Is it going to do any good? And I've had those same questions. And then you come, this company says, well, look, we're going to put sensors on the building. So we know this angle of the sun, right? We know wind speed. We know how to control all the heat pumps and everything in the building, the valves, turn them on. Just by signing up, you're going to save 15% on your energy. You don't really have to do anything, right? And it's like,
Right.
That is the future, right? That is the future. And I don't think there's a shortcut into it other than, doing some diligence and picking, finding, figuring out whether, who are these vendors, how viable are they, how, you just got to do your diligence on them. But there's no doubt that this is here.
Yeah.
That's why I think like this notion of energy getting productized,
Yeah.
for sure that you've got companies coming at it from every angle, right? You've got solar developers, you've got, Google Nest, just like the Google, right? The Nest thermostat, right? Just recently merged with Ohm Connect. Now they're Renew Power, and now they're trying to, build the biggest virtual power plant in Texas with 1 million homeowners. So the dollars flowing into this, the investment flowing into this, the brands that are getting involved, it is very important to pay attention to, because this really, I think it's going to be such a hot topic in 2025.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be. And also, when it comes to energy, low voltage is making a big comeback into this space. I mean, I'll show you a company here real quick, just because I know you're interested. Have you ever heard of Domatic yet? Domatic is doing all low voltage wiring for entire homes, fans, lights, blinds, mini split systems throughout. And they're working with a company, Plant Prefab. You may have heard of Plant Prefab, and right out there in Cloud
California.
Apartments. Yep, and Cloud Apartments is installing it in a lot of their things. But what's super cool about this is it's low voltage, right? It can be installed in a factory environment. It doesn't need to be skilled labor, other than where you're tying it together to where, I guess, the converter box may be for the product. But yeah, times are changing and it's coming, and that's what's super cool. There we go. I love that. See, that's why you picked it, right? Because I'm just going to sit there and be like, super cool. That's super cool. Have you seen the Super Cool podcast? Let's talk about some of the things you're seeing, that we consider innovative, right? And innovative is so overused anymore, and from a terminology standpoint, in my mind. But what has you the most excited out there? I mean, you've been on the forefront of all this. Have you come across anything that just goes, damn, never even thought about that?
Often, but what actually excites me is when you see technology. It doesn't just have to be technology, but when you see solutions going into places where you don't normally expect to be on the front lines of innovation. As much as I agree with you, Dave, that term is overused. So, for example, we spoke recently with a company called Butterfly, with 2 Ds, not 2 Ts, BUDDERFLY. And Butterfly, energy as a service company. These companies have been around for a very long time. Right? They'll come into a building, a commercial building, and say, hey, we're going to swap out all of your lighting. We're going to swap out your HVAC. We're going to swap out your energy system. We're going to upgrade them, modernize them. And, you're going to save, we're going to save, and it'll be as a service. You just, we'll provide it to you, and maybe it's zero money down to do it. And that's exciting. But a lot of these projects are bespoke, right? All these buildings are a little different. Butterfly said, well, we're going to do this a little differently. We're going to go into the local Sonic, the local Popeyes, the local KFC, Taco Bell, and we're going to land and expand, right? So we're going to go into these high energy, intense businesses, right? They've got a lot of equipment in there. We're going to swap everything out, zero money down. We're going to make the finances work. And then we're going to go into, all the Taco Bells, all the Sonics. And so you start reading these stories like, oh, in Long Island, 6 Sonics went, now like cut their energy, by 40%. And now they're on the front lines of sustainability. And so that type of thing excites me when you see the value proposition of these technologies going into businesses that are like, nothing's more like prominent and mainstream, and the least sort of like expected place to find sustainability is like your local Popeyes or Sonic. No offense to Popeyes or Sonic. So that to me is the real change. It's the technologies are here. They can be applied to so many different businesses. And that's figuring that innovation out. Or I should say, that's the innovation, right? How do you make the business model work? How do you make the operations work? And that's what gets us, kind of lit up, because then the benefits expand to everybody, right? And that's when we think it's not just about saving the planet. That's why we say it's about making life better.
Right, especially on a large scale when they have thousands and thousands of restaurants or cafes or whatever the case is around the world. If you can come in and do a plug and play on something to help, I guess, standardize the processes and lower energy costs and all of that, I think that's really where the big win's going to come in across the globe for everybody.
I mean, it's a little bit rinse and repeat, right? So
yeah,
it's a very clever way to, the environment doesn't care where the energy is cut, where the energy efficiency comes from, where the solar goes on, right? It's like, it's a global system, right? But when you can build some really exciting businesses around that, by just, really thinking that through, how do we do this in a replicable way, right? I think you get to some real innovation. We've seen a host of other technologies, but again, it's the partnership. So like in Utah, where Rocky Mountain Power worked with ES Solar, the utility, and Sonnen, the battery provider, and they were saying, well, gosh, we don't want to do what California did. We don't want to have all this intermittent solar in the middle of the day that we can't use, so we curtail it, just either run into the ground or export it for free to Utah and else. Like, we don't want that same problem here in Utah, right? So 5 years ago, they said, we're cutting all the solar incentives, and all the solar companies that were installers were like, we're out of here, right? Because like, it's no longer viable for homeowners, as viable for homeowners to put solar on the roof if you're getting rid of all the rebates, utility. And the utility said, yeah, but we're going to incentivize batteries, because we actually do want batteries, and we want to be connected to those batteries too, right? We want to pull that energy if we need it, so we don't have to fire up the peaker plant. And so, you see what's happening in Utah today, and it's really become like a, kind of the model for the country of how you do that well. You align the incentives between the installer, the battery supplier, the utility, the homeowner. Everybody's getting, make the finances work. It's different. And you get to some really fantastic results. So that's, to me, it's like these partnerships, figure out the business model, the technologies are all here. How do you apply them in ways where you actually get, the results you're looking for, and make it in this, win-win-win. That's the juice.
Yeah. Josh, what you should do is put together a big think tank and bring all these different partners to the table and actually sit down and have that conversation with some of these other innovative, thinkers that are out there. Because that's really what we found from the show, is when people start talking, stuff like you're talking about is what happens. When you actually have some stakeholders that come to the table and they figure out how is it a win for everybody, not just the business, but the consumer and everybody around them. And that's when magical things come together.
I agree. And what I actually think we should do, Dave, is I think we should do that here in Surfside Beach, in South Carolina. Come down, visit your family, come hang out. We'll get some more folks down here. Go out on the pier, right? Garden City.
That's right.
Live music.
I think that's great. Drink some vino.
I do agree. And I think the other thing that goes, so in this industry, around climate, the other innovation layer that I think is unsung are networks that are enabling ideas to move, across the world. We saw in like Morris, Minnesota, this tiny little town in western Minnesota, tiny little ag town. They were connected with a city, like 7,000 people, a town of similar size in Germany that had, implemented, I think, more like they're like a zero energy town, more renewable energy than they can use. The high school kids in Germany figured out, okay, we're going to put solar on the high school. We're going to do it. And, Morris, the leaders went over to Germany, and they were like, oh, I think we could do this. And so then they went back to western Minnesota, which conservative rural Minnesota, and they actually started doing it. They put solar on the liquor store, which excites everybody, right? I get like chilled beer from like the sun. That's like their thing. But, this innovation that can just, people can see, wow, a town our size did this on another continent. We could do these things too. It's in our self-interest, right? We're farmers. We harvest things. Let's harvest the sun. Let's harvest the wind. Let's make that work for us. So those connections, that's such a vital piece of getting the change we want to see.
Josh, appreciate it. We're running out of time here, but I have one question I think everybody would really garner as valuable from you, being that you've been part of so many amazing things. And, what lessons would you share as it relates to your experience with startups, entrepreneurship, climate solutions, decarbonization, you pick. Like what is the biggest lesson that you've learned in all of these things that you're doing?
I think that what jumps out for me is there's some of it's sort of like, I wouldn't say trite advice, but you hear the advice over and over again, and the reason you hear it over and over again because it's just true. You have to have, you have to pick a great team. You have to pick exceptional people who are better than you, to work with, to build at speed. You have to pick people that you really want to work with for a very long time, because startups are stressful, and that can't be understated, right? Especially if you want to go fast. I think the other thing is like we've talked about today, Dave, is that it's, people will say, well, if you want to start a business, think about where is your personal pain, go solve your personal pain. All of that is fine. All of that's good. But what you really, I think the businesses that succeed, the businesses I've been part of that have done the best, where it's the least friction to success, is when you're really aligned with what the customer wants, right? When it's not like, here's how I want to do it, but it's really like, here's how the customer wants me to deliver this product to them. Here's what the customer wants from in terms of product features, and I go solve that customer pain. That's really where the magic happens. I think those two things. Everybody says it, but that's just because they're true.
Is there anything we left out from our conversation today?
Not at all. This was, fast and comprehensive. I thought it was really fun.
Well, hey, we love to be fast, comprehensive. Well, let's give a plug out to what you have going on. Where can people find you, and what would you like them to do when they do find you?
So if you're interested in what we're talking about in terms of climate solutions that we say are real world, proven, scaling up now, you can find our podcast everywhere you listen. We're on YouTube. You look for the Super Cool channel. Certainly sign up for our weekly newsletter. That's where we're going in depth on the topics beyond what we cover on the podcast. The website for all of that is getsuper.cool.
Excellent. Excellent. Josh, thank you. Don't go anywhere. Wait right there for 1 second, because I need to wrap up and let everybody know where we're going to be. So what is up next for Dave Cooper Live? Well, we're going to be on location at Advancing Prefabrication, Phoenix, Arizona, February 17th through the 20th. If you would like to see us there and get together or join one of our executive events that we'll be hosting, please send us a DM on LinkedIn or an email or through YouTube, however you want to get a hold of us. And we're also a week later heading to Las Vegas for the International Builders Show, February 25th through the 27th. So let's meet up there as well. Same rules apply. Just reach out. We'll get back to you one way or another. And we're going to have another executive event while we're there as well. And that one's going to be a doozy. So if you're coming out, let us know if you're going to be there. Maybe you have an opportunity to join us and some of the many great people that we've had on this show. Josh, don't go anywhere, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really do appreciate it.
Great to see you again, Dave. Appreciate it too.
Yeah, and make sure you guys thank all of these supporting members that you see clicking across the screen as well. And if you'd like to be a part of that, please let us know. Reach out to us. And for the rest of you out there, say thank you to these sponsors. And guess what, Josh? I'll come back to you after this outro. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.